Hi, everyone. There's still a handful of people coming in, so I'll just give it another minute while we get set up. Can everyone hear me okay? That's awesome. Thank you, Leanne. Perfect. So welcome everyone to the Building a Growth Mindset workshop. Thanks, Julian. How are you guys doing today? Are we having a good day? Are we happy to be back from reading week or not so happy to be back from reading week? How are we doing? Tired. Yeah, me too. At least you had the week off. I didn't. So that must have been nice. Did you do anything fun or exciting? Also tired. Yeah, that is very fair. Hopefully we won't go too late today, so you can catch up on some of that sleep that you might have lost over the break. Yeah, I am kind of just gonna go and get started. Everyone can see the slides okay? Yeah, perfect. Thank you for the thumbs up there, Dominic. Awesome. So hello, everyone. I'm just going to introduce myself really quickly in case some of you haven't met me yet, but my name is Allison, and I am the student advisor at the Renison English Language Institute. Just last year, I graduated from the University of Waterloo, majoring in social development studies, and I'm currently completing the ACT Soul Certificate through Renison. So if anyone has any interest in Faculty of the Arts or teaching English at some point, then feel free to let me know later on, and we can always talk about that and connect. I did kind of want to start by saying that this workshop, like all the other ones, are pretty laid back. So if at any point you have any questions about anything, if you want me to slow down or speed up, it's okay. And if you wanted to share anything, feel free to unmute yourself or just send a message in the chat, and I will try to keep an eye on the chat there and try to answer as best as I can. Just keep in mind, I am also still learning on building a growth mindset for myself. So we can kind of work through this together and all kind of benefit from this at the same time. Perfect. If you guys wanted to as well, like feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat and say maybe your name and what you're studying at Waterloo right now. So I know we have a few friends joining us from outside of the ELI, so welcome. If you are new here, then that's awesome. So we're very happy to have you. Perfect. So our agenda really quick, we're going to start off with the fixed mindset, which is kind of the opposite of a growth mindset. And we'll get into more details about that, what it looks like, how it affects your life and your education. And then we'll talk about the growth mindset and kind of look at the same things of what is it, what does it look like for the individual with a growth mindset, and how that is going to affect your life and your education going forward. And then we'll talk a little bit about Dr. Carol Dweck, who was the psychologist who created the growth mindset, and she theorized it, did all of the studies, so we'll get to know her a little bit better. And then we'll talk about the phrase "not yet" and what that means and how we can use that to continue growing our growth mindset. And then we'll kind of end off with some steps to building a growth mindset and some things that maybe we want to work on for ourselves individually. And then we'll have a little wrap up and just summarize and have some time to just chat amongst ourselves together and figure out maybe what this looks like for us going forward, and maybe try to set some goals together if we have time. Perfect. Does all of this make sense to everyone? If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Yeah. And I cannot hear clearly because my listening.
I am. Is that a little bit better?
Okay, yeah. No, it's not like not clear, but
Just
yeah, slow
slow
down,
down.
a little bit.
Perfect.
Yes.
I'm so sorry. I will try
No,
to
no,
be.
no, that's my bad. Yeah. Thanks.
If I speed up again, just send me a message in the chat and I will remember to slow.
Okay. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Awesome. So what I kind of want to start with is just a general discussion of what do you think the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset is? So maybe you've heard these terms before, maybe they're brand new to you, but just in the chat, or you can unmute yourself as well, just let me know what you think the difference might be. I get maybe one or two answers.
I think because this word is new for me, so uh, I was just translating, and I think the fixed mindset is seem like the how to say that, like the uh he cannot change a lot, but the growth mindset can have a lot of changes like that.
Yeah, absolutely. You are 100% right.
Oh,
Perfect.
that's yeah, lucky. I'm lucky. Yeah.
Thank you. And someone in the chat is saying that it means an open-minded versus closed-minded. And Julian said, fixed mindset is similar to a habit. So yeah, both of those are definitely on the right track. It's not so much being open-minded or closed-minded, but it is very similar to having a habit to have a fixed mindset of just taking things the same way every time. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you all so much for your participation. So we'll start by looking at a fixed mindset. So a fixed mindset is the belief that intelligence and abilities are static. So effort and practice aren't seen as important because one's abilities are innate, so they cannot be changed. So what you can do right now is basically what you're going to be able to do in the next 5 years. Everything that you can do is what you're meant to do, and that is it. There's an example I'd like to give about playing an instrument. So if you pick up a guitar for the very first time and you just start strumming, odds are you're probably not going to be very good. So someone with a fixed mindset would just put the guitar back down and say, okay, I can't do this because I tried once and it wasn't good. So they're not going to keep practicing because they don't think that their abilities will change, and they don't think they'll be able to grow maybe to a Jimi Hendrix level. So they just will avoid doing things like that. And they also believe that temporary setbacks are personal failures. So maybe a poor mark on a math test just means that you're bad at math, and they will not look back. It also means that challenging tasks are seen as chances for failure and not for learning. So if you start doing something that's a little more difficult for you, you might not see it as a chance to grow your brain. You'll just see it as a way that other people are going to see your weaknesses. Does that make sense? Yeah. So what does a fixed mindset look like? So a lot of times this will be avoiding difficult tasks out of fear of failure. So something that's difficult will show others our weaknesses, And we don't want that embarrassment, so we don't want to try what the difficult task might be. It's also viewing the success of others as a threat or a source of jealousy. So other people might be naturally good at things, and they believe that so someone has this ability, but I don't have it. So if someone is getting good grades or getting grades that aren't better than you, then you might start to think like, oh, they're showing off. Oh, they're naturally good at this. They don't even have to try. They're too good. I'm never going to be as good as them. It's also giving up easily, like I said, with the guitar. So picking it up, strumming 3 times, and it doesn't sound great. So they just put it back down and never look back. And ignoring feedback from others. So a lot of you I know are getting feedback from your teachers, and someone with a fixed mindset might just ignore that feedback and think, no, my writing is great the way it is, or I'm never going to get better. They hate my writing. Why would I even try? And it's hiding flaws to avoid judgment. So like you're avoiding the challenges, we'll also hide things like poor grades or lie about how easy we find an assignment just so that we can fit in with other people. I like this picture here of the dog saying, what? I couldn't do it for the first time, and now you want me to try again? And just his expression, because I can completely relate to that. So definitely the belief that if you're not a natural, then you don't want to do the task again. You won't try to complete it in a better way the next time. So a fixed mindset during your life and in your education. So in your life, it might be taking less chances. So even if you want to become a great singer or a great guitar player, you might not do that just because you feel like you are going to make a fool of yourself or embarrass yourself, and not being receptive to feedback. So you might take feedback as a personal attack, like I said earlier, and not applying for certain jobs even. So you might be super qualified for a position, but you'll automatically think that they are going to find someone better. There's someone more qualified, so why would I try? And it's frequently worrying about the perception of others. So what other people might think of you, that's what you're thinking of all the time. And you just assume that people are judging you for the worst and not seeing what all the good things about you are. In school, it might look like studying less in more difficult classes. So you avoid the more stressful classes just because you don't want to fail, or frequently dropping classes because you don't want to put in the effort to get better at them. It was difficult from the start. Maybe you failed your first quiz and you think, oh, well, there's always something I can do better. So why would I keep trying with this? And you might even have higher anxiety about lower grades and failed tests, just because you have that idea that you can't do it, or I can't do it, so I don't want to. And you might even think that the grade that you received on a test is more about the test itself and not about the effort that you put in. So after writing a test, someone with a fixed mindset might say, oh, that test was really easy. That wasn't me. That was the test that did that. Or thinking, oh, the test was really hard. That's why I didn't do well. So you don't really take that much personal responsibility. And finally, procrastinating difficult assignments. So maybe a lot of us can kind of relate to this, but when an assignment feels more difficult, we put off doing it just because we don't want to fail. You don't want to feel like you're putting in so much effort and not actually understanding, but you're also not putting in the effort to find out the answers so that you can understand it a bit better. Does all of this make sense to everyone? Does anyone have any questions about maybe a fixed mindset or what it's like? Not yet. Awesome. Thank you, Dominic. Perfect. I'll keep moving forward, but if anyone wants me to go back and clarify anything about the fixed mindset, please feel free to ask. May's give me a thumbs up. Perfect. Thank you so much. We'll talk about the growth mindset now. This is obviously what we're all here to learn about. So what is a growth mindset? So it is the belief that intelligence and abilities can be developed and adapted over time. So your abilities aren't innate and your intelligence isn't either. So we can build on what we already have and continue learning new things. So it's kind of the idea that you can teach an old dog new tricks, and you can always learn more things and grow and become better at something that might be difficult to begin with. It's also the belief that practicing and training will allow these abilities to improve. So you're obviously not going to get better at playing the guitar by staring at it over in the corner, but instead you'll make that plan to actually sit down and practice the chords maybe 10 or 15 times a day until you finally get it right. And they're willing to be patient and wait for the results to come out. It's also this ability to bounce back after a less than ideal performance. So maybe you did a little poorly on a test, but you can look at the grade and say, okay, well, here's where I went wrong. I didn't study every day. I didn't review my cue cards enough. And that's why I didn't do well on this test. So going forward, they know that they need to maybe look at certain topics a little bit more in depth, or practice their cue cards a couple more times before they actually get it. And it's also seeing challenging tasks as chances to learn. So if I put a Rubik's Cube in front of you, if you have a growth mindset, then you're going to sit there and be curious and wonder how to solve the Rubik's Cube. And you're probably just going to be excited to have that chance to learn how to solve it, while a fixed mindset might say, oh, I can't do it, it's too hard. And that's that. So what does a growth mindset look like? A lot of times it is using flaws and mistakes as opportunities to grow. So if you put off an assignment to the last minute before, that's going to spark the need to plan better for your next assignment. It's also setting effective goals to improve weaknesses. I'm sure most of you have heard of SMART goals by this point. If not, feel free to let me know and we can talk about that a little bit as well. But really just being able to figure out what you want and find the motivators to improve and become a better version of yourself. It's also embracing challenges and accepting the risk of possible failure. So maybe taking the chance to speak out in a breakout room if you feel like your English isn't in the same level as your classmates. But that's a challenge and it has the possible risk of failure, but you're going to grow so much more when you do try and you do speak English outside of the classroom or you practice in different ways. It can also be maybe performing at a talent show just because you want to. You know you're not perfect at playing the guitar, but you want to have that experience. So you're embracing that little challenge and accepting that it might be a bit of a failure, but that's okay. That's how we learn. And it's also applying feedback and constructive criticism to continue growth. So not taking feedback as an attack, but as a starting point for self-improvement. Like I said, I know a lot of your teachers give you guys a lot of feedback on all of your assignments. So it's actually taking the feedback that they're giving you and using that to move forward in your next piece of work. And a growth mindset in life and education. So in life, it might look like taking on larger tasks. Oh, sorry, I wanted to go back and talk about this plant. So I obviously put a plant here because growth mindset is, of course, the growth. But I do also kind of like to think of it as like we're little house plants. And if any of you have ever taken care of a house plant, you'll know that if you leave it for a while and it starts to die, you can still bring it back to life and revive it just by starting to take care of it a little bit more later on. So if you notice that your plant is starting to wilt and you start giving it a bit more water and moving it where the sunlight is, or maybe putting it in a new pot, then it'll probably come back to life. And we kind of work the same way. So even if you've been working off a fixed mindset for this whole time, and that's just not working for you, then maybe giving yourself a little more of a pep talk or practicing new strategies to get your work done. That's the same as moving a plant to a new pot. It's just in human form. And we're going to grow a lot more in that way. And we're going to be able to flourish by kind of taking care of ourselves a bit more and nurturing ourselves and giving ourselves that positive feedback that we need to grow and be a little bit better. I know it's really cheesy, but I needed to say it. So yeah, in life, it might also look like utilizing professional development opportunities for more constant learning and growth more later on in life, taking more risks in job choice for like upwards mobility. So actually taking the chance to apply for a job that you might not be 100% qualified for, but you really want. So someone with a growth mindset will actually go for that and just hope for the best. And it's also being confident in your abilities and your relationships. So people with growth mindsets do show a lot less anxiety around relationships and around the way that people think about them. And they're just very accepting of who they are because they know who I am today will be a better person tomorrow. So they understand that they're constantly growing and constantly adapting. In your education, I lost my spot. That's okay. In your education, it might look like choosing more challenging classes. So not focusing too much on what other people say about the class, saying it might be a bird course or a really easy course, and actually choosing something that takes you out of your comfort zone and lets you learn something brand new. It could also be creating a plan to successfully complete each class and actually sticking to it. So your grades are based on what you've done and the effort that you put in. So if you have a grade that you didn't really like very much, you might actually work towards doing something better or studying more and changing your habits so that you can get to the grades that you want. It also has proved to give students an improved grade point average, so higher grades and less anxiety over tests and assignments, just because you know that the test really doesn't define you. And if you didn't do very well on the test or an assignment, you just know that you have to go back and relearn and try a different strategy so that you can do better the next time, or so that you can eventually understand it a little bit more. Yeah, does anyone have any questions about the fixed or growth mindsets? Maybe how they look, any of the definitions, or is it all crystal clear? No, thanks, Julian. Very clear. Thank you, Brooke. And May has given me a little clap. All good. Perfect. Thank you guys so much. So I have a quick little poll, I think. Yes, I do. So really, do you think that you have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset right now? Because some of you might be here and you actually do have a growth mindset and you know everything that I'm saying already. Or some of you might just have a fixed mindset, and that's okay too. So I just want everyone to kind of take a second and think about which one you have. Missing a handful more. I'll just give it a few more seconds. Perfect. Just give it 10 more seconds. See if the last 3 people are going to answer. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for participating in that. So yeah, it looks like most of us do have a fixed mindset, but there are a few that already recognize that they have a growth mindset, and that's awesome. So maybe at some point, if you want to take over and lead, feel free. But if not, we can all continue learning together. I know for myself, I have definitely had a fixed mindset for my whole life. What sticks out to me most is in math and science. I wasn't very good at them in school growing up. So I just always assumed that, like, nope, I am not good at math. I'm not good at science. And I completely stopped trying in grade 11 when I stopped taking math and science for good. And I have not looked back. So it is definitely something that I feel like has kept me back a little bit. And maybe some of you have the same idea from your high schools or from growing up in your school board, and maybe you recognize the same kind of patterns. Perfect. So I want to introduce this lady here, Dr. Carol Dweck, really quick. So she's a psychologist from Stanford University, and basically she wanted to understand why some students are able to recover from setbacks while other students find them really hard to work through and take them a lot more personally. So she specifically looked at this in students in more primary grades and a couple of high schools, and I think ended up doing a whole study all across the United States and learned very big effects that a growth mindset and a fixed mindset will have on students in their education. So one of the studies that she did was giving a challenging problem to 2 groups of 10-year-olds. One group said that they enjoyed the challenge, they were super excited, they really wanted to learn, and they were ready. And that group obviously had the growth mindset, and their teachers had fostered it for them throughout their classes. The other group, on the other hand, who had the fixed mindset and probably went through a lot of studying in the same way that a lot of us have grown up with our studies, and they said it was terrible. So doing this challenging task was one of the worst things that they could have been asked to do. They absolutely hated it. They just did not want to try again. So the students with the fixed mindset actually said that they would cheat or avoid the problem if they were given that task again. So they wouldn't try on their own. They wouldn't try and figure it out. They would either leave or completely copy off someone else. But students with the growth mindset felt a lot more encouraged, and they wanted to keep trying, and they didn't take it personally if they didn't solve the problem. However, the students with the fixed mindset, of course, they did take it a little more personally and thought that the problem itself was with them and not with the problem on the sheet. So they really didn't like that they had to show the world or show Dr. Dweck that they were unable to solve this problem, and they were embarrassed by it. So of course, 10-year-olds might act a little bit different than we will at this age, but probably not too far off, if we're being honest. So what really inspired Dr. Dweck was a school in, I think it was Chicago. Rather than giving students a failed grade, they would just have not yet written on their transcript or on their report card. So they actually found that students who had been told not yet versus given a numeric grade were more likely to keep trying. So in order to pass the course, they had to get that check mark, that little pass. If they hadn't passed the course or hadn't done enough, then they would be told not yet, and then they would go back and try again. So this idea is that not yet gives students and gives people just a greater sense of confidence and encourages them to be more persistent and to be a lot more patient in their learning, and probably even be a little bit more purposeful in what they're doing. So really trying to figure out what works for them and how they can be successful, rather than just getting maybe a 52 and saying, oh no, I'm not good at this. And you never get that chance again, right? That is where kind of our school system falls a little short, but kind of adopting this not yet mindset for ourselves and applying it to our own studies might help us in the future. So changes with the not yet language kind of changes that mindset of I can't to just saying I'm not there yet. And that's really good to do. So something that I want all of us to do on your own, you don't have to unmute yourself or anything, but I just want you to think about something that you have previously thought, I can't do that. Or think of something that might be a goal of yours that maybe you haven't attained yet. And just practice saying, not yet. So maybe for me, instead of saying, I can't do math, I'm just going to say, I'm not there yet. I can't do algebra yet. I haven't learned this yet. I haven't learned to play guitar yet. So I'm not there yet. I'm just going to give everyone a minute really quick to kind of practice saying that out loud, because it might feel silly. It might feel funny for the first little bit, but I want everyone to get into that habit of saying it more regularly and being more comfortable with the idea. And now in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself, does anyone have any ideas for how you can apply a growth mindset to your personal learning? How can you apply a growth mindset to your learning? I just want to see a couple of answers. Join more activities. Yeah, how will that help, Dominic? Adapt to different environments, for sure. What do you mean by that? That's definitely right. That is like taking chances and letting yourself be a little more challenged in your day-to-day life and taking on something that's very different from what you're used to. It's a really great way to grow. Can I have one or two more ways that you can apply a growth mindset to your learning? Be brave to face the failure. Absolutely, Julian. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. The person that I'm kind of stepping in for as the student advisor right now, AJ, he has always said, if you're not failing, you're not learning. And I think that's a really great mindset to have. So especially with learning another language or learning English, if you're not failing and you're not making the mistakes, there's no way that you can get better. So you have to make the mistakes so that you can grow, and then you can become the best English speaker in the world or the best soccer player or anything. I promise you it's not that hard to be the best English speaker. Most native English speakers aren't very good at it. Can we have one more way that you can apply a growth mindset to your learning? I'll share some with you in a minute, but I just want to see what you guys can think of. Take on challenges? Absolutely. Thanks, Brooke. Yeah. So taking on whatever challenges that you can. So if someone hands you a really tough question, remember that that's a chance for you to learn and not something that's there to humiliate you. It's a chance for you to grow your mind and think in a different way that maybe you haven't thought of before. Perfect. Thank you all. So a couple of tips that I have. So number one is becoming interested in the process and not the outcome. So everything in life has a process and an outcome, especially in your studies. You're going to find this in everything that you do. So you have the start, everything that you have to do in the middle, and then what happens in the end. So rather than solely focusing on the outcome, consider the journey that you have to take to get there. So maybe your outcome that you're looking at is a final essay. So rather than just thinking of the essay that you have to write, think about the little steps. So doing your research, finding a topic that you're super interested in, figuring out how an essay works and how to effectively communicate what your thesis is. And putting all these little pieces together, you'll also be working on your time management, on your writing skills, on your argument skills, so many different things just to get to the end result of the final essay. So considering all of that in the process and really embracing it is going to help you with your growth mindset. So you can think about, what can I learn from this experience? How does the experience make me feel? What resources do I need to complete the project? Do I have all the tools that are needed? How can I acquire what's needed for the task? What is my goal? What steps do I need to complete to reach my goal? And putting in the time to really invest yourself in the whole process from start to finish, that will help you with a growth mindset because you're trying to learn a bit more every step of the way. So focusing on the process allows us to be more purposeful when completing our tasks. Does that make sense, everyone? And the second tip I have, which I know all of your instructors will really appreciate if you start doing this, is to embrace feedback. So whether it is positive feedback, negative feedback, or critical feedback, definitely take it and embrace it and work on using that as a step to build off of for your next task that you have to do. So take a second and think about a task that you recently completed. Maybe it was an assignment for your writing class, or maybe it was a midterm or a big class that's really important for you. So what feedback or criticism did you receive from it? How did it make you feel? And does the feedback make sense to you? Have you thought about the task since as well? Do you need clarification on the feedback? What are your next steps to applying the feedback? Is it something that you'll do right now and really start working on? Or is it something that you're going to apply next time? Like the next time that you have an essay, you'll apply the feedback that your writing instructor gave you. I'll give you guys a bit of a second to kind of sit and think about those questions. And really think about kind of how you would go about applying the feedback in the future. You don't have to share, but if you would like to, feel free. So what we're really trying to do is use the feedback that we're receiving as a motivator to continue growing. So you want to take it in and take it as a starting point for what you want to do next. Awesome. Quiz feedback, yeah. How do you want to apply your quiz feedback, May, if you don't mind me asking? Maybe you're going to use the feedback. Maybe it wasn't a great grade that you got from your test. And maybe that feedback makes you feel not too good, but you don't actually understand what the teacher has written. So your first step into using your feedback might be to just go up to your instructor and say, hey, can you explain this feedback? I don't understand it. And then from there, you can work on the next steps of applying it. So maybe it's preparing a little bit earlier for your next test, or paying a little more attention to your textbook when you're making notes. Or maybe it's just going to class every day and really paying attention to the teacher and participating a bit more, because that could always help too. I'm not saying this for you specifically, just in general. If someone else is thinking about quiz feedback as well as their feedback, then it's a good place to start. Thank you for sharing. And tip number 3, which a couple of you said as well, is just take on the challenge, accept the challenge. So stepping outside of your comfort zone is one of the best ways that we can grow. So it's if there's a task that you have that sounds kind of daunting or difficult, say yes to it. Go and try it, because anything that is outside of your comfort zone is going to be a way to grow and a way to learn something new. So you want to give yourself those chances to actually accept those moments and learn something. Because if we continue just staying in our little comfort zone and keep doing everything that we already do, we're not going to become any better at things that are a little more difficult for us. So each challenge is an opportunity for you to learn more about yourself and to learn more about the world as well. And I kind of wanted to end just on a lovely quote from Dr. Carol Dweck. It's just, becoming is better than being. So this really goes back to embracing the process of getting to the outcome and enjoying that journey, rather than just focusing solely on the outcome that you want. And to kind of summarize everything, a fixed mindset might be difficult to break, but it's not impossible. So practicing accepting the not yet and working on embracing that mindset will really help you to grow in the future and to kind of be a little more confident in your skills and abilities, because you know that they're still in development rather than fixed and like what you see is what you get. Also be kind to yourself in your journey. So it's going to take a very long time to actually be able to say that you have a growth mindset, for those of us who are still learning. And just really being able to be nice to yourself and accepting that it's not going to be easy and you're not going to be successful, maybe on your first round or on the second, maybe not even on the third, but that's okay, because it's all a part of learning and a part of growing. A growth mindset can benefit you through your studies and beyond. So like we looked at the ways that it can help you in your life and in your careers in the future, even in co-op jobs, if you're applying to those at some point, then having a growth mindset and being open to learn and to try will always help and push you further. And there is no limit to what you can do as long as you practice and work for what you want. That's kind of the gist of a growth mindset and what there is to it. So does anyone have any questions at all about the growth mindset or fixed mindset, or maybe creating those goals for yourself? No questions? Awesome. So I have one final question for you, just because we do still have 10 more minutes. Just in general, how would you like to build your growth mindset? So what are the steps that you think you are going to take, or what's something that you want to start doing to grow your growth mindset or to build your growth mindset? Yes, absolutely. The recording will be posted on the BASE and eFast Learn pages, so you'll be able to watch it again. And I'll post the slides as well. So if you want to see them, then feel free. I'll post those probably sometime tomorrow. And does anyone want to share maybe the first step that they plan on taking for their growth mindset, or something that they would like to work on? Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you for coming. For me, I think my first step would be to just kind of embrace the not yet mindset. Start embracing feedback. Absolutely. Thank you, Brooke. Yeah, just taking in what people are saying and using it as a tool or a stepping stone to start working on yourself. And yeah.
I think you need someone to push you, like a professor or a strict professor, and had like high expectation. So he pushed you to finish the assignment, to finish the task, then you can have open like growth mindset.
So that kind of goes with kind of embracing a challenge, right? Do you think?
Yeah, just I think to accept challenge by myself, and I prefer to let someone to push me. Also, and it may be hard and feel very panic, but it's useful.
Yeah, definitely. We don't want to feel too panicked. So if you are taking on a little too much, then that might kind of hold your growth a little too hard. So take it little by little and don't try to overwhelm yourself, because that will hinder you as well. Yeah, definitely. Just accepting the challenge, kind of pushing yourself and being your own motivator to keep doing the work and everything is absolutely true. Thank you, May. And Julian is saying, out of the comfort zone and be confident. Definitely. So just being confident in the skills that you already have, kind of also being aware of where you're starting and where you want to go is really big too. And stepping out of your comfort zone, of course, is everything that we need to do. So being able to walk away from things that we're more familiar with or things that are easy to us and taking on those challenges. That's perfect. Thank you, Julian. Yeah, maybe one more person share. Like I was saying before, I would take the not yet approach and just kind of get used to not saying the word can't, because can't is going to be something that holds you back a lot. And I know this because it's held me back a lot. So just putting that aside and just saying like, oh, I'm not there yet will be my thing to work on. anyone want to share just one more? Give it a couple seconds. Other than that, though, if everyone is feeling a little confident about this or wants to go and do their own research, feel free. I'll share a couple of resources as well when I post. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. I always get the hiccups. But yeah, I will share a couple more resources and things to read or worksheets if I can find any when I post these online on Learn. And yeah, thank you all so much for coming. I'll stick around for a couple more minutes in case anyone has any questions. But other than that, thank you. And I hope you all have a great night and get some rest. It is pretty late on a Monday. Yeah, thank you, Maisha. Have a great night, Dominic. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brooke. Thank you, Leanne. Bye, Serena. Bye. Thanks, Iris. May, are you okay? All right. You're all good.